Do you mind stating and spelling your name for the record?
Name is Brady Hyde, Bradyhyde.
Cool. Your pronouns?
Him, his,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. And then do you have a title with the college that you would like to be referred to?
Columbia College?
Yes.
I'm an adjunct faculty member at Columbia College.
Cool. And then do you have like a professional title outside of Columbia that you want to be referred to?
My professional title is Director of Operations for Bureau of Gravity.
Do you want to sort of give a little bit of an introduction and talk about your work that you've done at Columbia and then also some of your industry experience as well?
I started teaching at Columbia my senior year. We had a faculty member that had a family emergency like 2 days before the semester began. And I had been his TA for a while. And so I got asked by the assistant to the chair, do you know anybody who can teach Photoshop and some of the beginning graphics classes? And I was like, well, I can do it. It was really just joking. And they were like, no, it's a great idea. And I started teaching my senior year at Columbia, the beginning graphics class, but it was a very different Columbia at that time. And so from that, I have freelanced all over the place from ABC National, ABC Local, NBC Local, NBC National. I have worked in New York, LA. I have worked in Chicago. I have done everything from direct to camera to engineering to audio to lighting. I really just a gamut of everything. I've run graphics, not as well as I would like to. That's not my strong suit by any means, but I've run graphics and stuff too for production. So I've really kind of done a lot of everything. I went to Columbia College and started as a live sound major. That was going to be my goal. And at the end of my freshman year, I did some touring and decided I disliked being on the road all the time. And so came back and we're going to try this TV thing. And so jumped over to TV and have been there ever since. And just have worked with amazing teams. I've done a lot of freelance stuff, as I said, but the biggest stint that I've done from a full-time position was at Weigel Broadcasting. I started there at a time when we didn't really have much of a studio, didn't really have much production. And in my 14-year, 10-month stint at Weigel Broadcasting, we built out 3 studios, 2 control rooms, launched multiple national networks, multiple local shows, sports production, all this stuff. We kind of grew out that program. And at one point in time, just recently, I realized that I'd kind of hit the end of what I could do there, and that I had taken them as far as I could, and it was time to try something new, because my motto is, if you're not learning every day, why are you doing it? You got to be learning something new. And so I actually met Jimmy Allen, who owns Bureau of Gravity out in Aurora, and had a conversation with him in an event he had here. And we had 3 or 4 other conversations after that. And it was just really good conversation about creating and telling stories. And that's probably the thing that I like to do most, is tell people stories. From a technical standpoint, I don't consider myself creative by any means, but you come to me and say, I have this idea, I can tell you how to do it. It's from a technical standpoint. And so coming in here, I've hit the ground running, and we've redone an entire control room. We've built up a studio on first floor. We're getting the second floor studio wired. We're wiring the third floor for production, and we're starting to put together the plans and stuff for the next 2 buildings of production space that we're working on, which is going to be amazing once we get everything rolling there. So that is kind of my career in a nutshell. I've got multiple awards, but at the end of the day, and I said this to you at the beginning, Gabby, success isn't about the awards. Success isn't about the job you do every day. Success is about getting up and enjoying what you do and wanting to go back and make the next day even better than the last. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I guess maybe I guess transitioning to this, I've gotten to be in a classroom with you for basically half of my Columbia experience. And so I think that's something personally that I haven't had an issue with, because all of us have become so close-knit because we follow each other from classes to classes. But I'm also sort of thinking about it, and I feel like that has a lot to do with who you are as a professor, because you encourage that and really just create and cultivate that space for people to connect and to bond and to form friendships.
There are so many students that come in and go, live TV isn't my thing. And you know what? I wasn't 100% sure it was my thing when I started as a student either, but there is an adrenaline rush and an energy level in working with a team to create something that you don't get anywhere else. And it's just fun. And I've had so many students that come out of class and go, never, I'm a post-production major. I'm gonna be an editor. I'm being an editor. I could list 7 students right now that have come through my classes and gone, this was really fun. I enjoyed this, and jump into the next 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of classes to kind of switch their track from post-production to production. And now they're working in sports production or out in New York in news production or CNN, and they're just doing amazing things. And so many of them, like, I love getting up. As an editor, I come in every day and I'm editing the same thing over and over. I've got a project I'm working on, and it's a 4-month edit, and I'm just sitting in front of there editing. He's like, and it was fine, but to switch my focus and go into this world where every day is something different. Today I'm in New York doing a Mets game. Then I'm going to LA to do, you're just all over the place. And it's just a very different world, and it's exciting. It's fun. So many of those students that I've worked with, I've got a bunch that have gone overseas to do Olympics production and come back and go, most incredible, unbelievable experience I've ever had, and want to do it again. Just because you don't get that kind of production energy anywhere else. So yeah, and it's, you got to work with students and get them to find their creativity and fun. I teach the way I would want to be taught. I teach the way I would want to be taught, and it's the opportunity to allow students to work together, figure things out on their own, guide them along the way, answer any question they can possibly come in, but challenge them to think outside of the box and create something that just they should be proud of when they're done. But also learn from that, because every production you do, you walk away and go, wish I'd done that differently, should have done that, could have done this. This didn't go at all like I wanted to, or it implodes and it goes to hell. And you turn around and go, well, that didn't quite work like I thought, but you know what? Next time we know how to do it differently. I taught Freak Out for a long time, and to watch these students, and we had several teachers that were very much like, this is the way you've got to do it. And I always was like, no, they can do it their way. If it doesn't work, then you can explain why it doesn't. And I promise you, them learning that is more important than just doing it the way that you want them to do it. And so, yeah, it's a hard thing to it's a hard line to do, but letting students really get out there and just do what they want to do and guide them to figure out how to do it is just so important.
I think, like, again, that speaks a little bit to your style, that it's not about like memorizing stuff on paper. It's about actually being able to learn and do it. And I think that's something I had to learn, because I feel like one of the things I'm struggling with now, especially as I'm getting like closer to graduation, is like, you don't get that academic validation in the real world, like that 100% on like a piece of paper, and that, like, you did a good job. Like, you have more time to people tell you what you did
in
wrong.
the academic world, everything's black or white.
Yeah.
I really think it is. There's no kind of gray area. Every time you will go in the field and do a production, nothing is going to be straight black or white. You're going to either be in a room where there's way too much sunlight coming in, and now my face is kind of blasted out on the side. How do I handle that? You're going to be in a space where there's a giant echo. You're going to be dealing with gear that's not working. There's so many things. So you just have to kind of roll with the punches. And the best way to do that is, I've been managing for a long time. I started my first job, I did a bunch of stuff at a golf course and managed stuff there. And on my way through at Columbia, when I was staff, I was a manager there for a bunch of students and other staff members. And even going over to Weigel and even managing on crews with freelance stuff, I've managed a lot. And the one thing I say about managing is, smart managers, there are managers that are bad managers. Bad managers found themselves with people that are dumber than them, because they want to be the smartest person in the room. So you find people that can't live up to that level. And so that way, every time you come in, it's always your way, everything's done your way, and that's the case. Smart managers will surround themselves with people that argue with them, because you want somebody who's going to duke out their opinion and mix with your opinion and their opinion over there, and you will come up with the best plan and idea as you go through it. And so when managing, I like to find smart, driven, talented people. And I've worked at Weigel a while. And the one thing Weigel does is we hire a lot of younger people. We just do, from a cost perspective. It's how they kind of operate. We don't get third level market experience that often there. And that's awesome because you find really driven, younger, fresh out of school or maybe one of the job students that want to come in and just learn stuff. And, in the past couple of years of the pandemic, I've had several people that have left Weigel while I was still there. And they've all gone off other places. And, they get to these places like, I knew how to light, I knew how to mix audio and EQ. We went through that. Like, we had a band, and like, oh yeah, I got that. And I jumped in and I was able to do that. I'm like, yeah, that's because we spent time teaching still. Like, you got to learn every day. And that's what I said. And I've said to somebody, I'm like, Weigel was a great place to come in, get your experience hands on, and then you jump for the next job. This is not where you stay forever because it's just not that kind of company. It's not who they are there. You got to continue to grow and move forward, and you bring new blood in. And you never want to leave anybody hanging high and dry, but you also know that you should be looking at what's next. It's a great place 3-4 years, and then you find the next job. And even now, you're going to find a job, and you're going to find a family. When you jump out and you graduate, you're going to find that work family that you spend time with, and you have a great people you work with and a good time, and you're going to want to stay there. It's going to be comfortable. And the moment that it becomes comfortable, you realize, nope, it's time to find the next thing, because otherwise you stop challenging yourself. So I've said this to a couple of students. It's not my class, it's yours. I've done all this and I do it every day. It needs to be you stepping up and doing the next thing. And whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. I will help guide and be and show up early, stay late, create graphic, whatever you need, I'm there to help with. But if you're not going to put the work in, I can't help you. And so the ability to challenge students that way, I've had really good response with it. Every once in a while you meet one where you go, this isn't going to be anything. And I've had entire projects fall apart because somebody didn't step up. But the other thing I'll try to do is, and when I put the groups together, I try to put groups together, people that are going to step up and do, and some that aren't. And hopefully they kind of pull each other up to the same level.
But do you want to sort of talk about what that's like to watch that growth and development happen and to get to be a part of that, and sort of what that means to you as a teacher?
So my mom was a teacher, and she taught 5th grade for many years. Then she started working for preschool and became a manager, director of a preschool. And she would see students as my sister and I got older that were students that she had there. And so half my family's teachers, like all my cousins, teachers are who they are. And so when I graduated high school and went off to get into live sound and TV, I was the oddball in the family. I think it's probably the nicest way to word it. But my connection with teaching, there are days, especially when you start to manage, that it just gets tiresome. And it's funny because you can say that, but until people actually experience it, they don't understand it. My assistant, who actually took over for my position at Weigel when I left, he kind of managed it for a while as an interim. And I think he called me after the first week, and he's like, "Holy cow, man! I had no idea." I'm like, "You covered for me when my daughter was born." He's like, "Yeah, it was pretty rough then." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and so you can get burnt out and you can get tired and real fast. So there's a couple of things. You need to find a place of zen. Where is your moment where you can just sit back, blinders on everything out there, and just focus on what's in front of you?" And so for me, for a while, it was live sound. I would go, I hated load in, all that stuff, but I would get a 10-piece band mixing on a Friday, Saturday night at a wedding. And I just listened to these performers who were amazing musicians and great music. And you just sort of kind of zen out. So that's one of mine. I don't do that near as much as I used to, but that was one of that was what kind of recharged me. Another one for me is sitting on a boat, rocking in the water with some good music. I don't even need a book. Books are great. I don't read as much as I probably should, but just sitting there, rocking the water, and just the sun and warmth, and it's amazing. So that's another moment of zen, and that's one that I can completely lose track of everything else going on. But the one that I do probably most often is teach, to see students get to that level at the end of the day. I love directing. Directing is my favorite thing to do. Give me something live to direct, and I am just, especially if you can make it as complicated as possible with as many live shots and video, all this, that's what I love to do. I love directing. So when I started jumping to management, I don't direct near as much as I used to, but I started to realize that helping others achieve something and build something and make something is almost as rewarding and just about as fun. And I get the same thing from teaching. Watching these students come in the door, super, super quiet day one, nobody talks, trying to get them to come out of their shell to realize that their opinion matters, their ideas matter, their stories matter, and bringing all that together, they bring so much to the table. You just create great products. And so to watch them go through the semester, get to the end. And now I've had a couple of people go, aren't you jealous? You know, I've got these students that are doing this or this. I'm like, no, not at all. So happy that they found something they love, something they're incredibly talented at doing, and they're doing it every day. I've heard so many people talk about success, multiple awards. I've got all that stuff. You put the stupid trophies on shelves. Great, wonderful. They just collect dust, and you just have to dust them on a regular basis. So it's one more thing to clean. So what is success? Success is finding something you do every day and just doing it, and not thinking or taking anything other than what it is at face value. It's the friendships, it's the networking, it's the shows, it's the creation. And then I've had classes that I've taught where I just love the curriculum. I love watching students create things, and it's fun. And that's why I teach. That's why I do what I do, is because it recharges me. It makes all that other garbage that's in your life that weighs down on your shoulders and weighs your feet down, and it just kind of makes it and puts it in perspective and allows you to go forward and do it every day.
Lastly, I feel like you've dropped so many like great little pieces of advice in this interview, and obviously even just like outside of this, like conversations that we've had. And so as we sort of start to conclude, do you think like anything that you didn't touch on that you want to add, or any valuable pieces of advice that you've learned that you want to sort of impart onto students?
Don't let an opportunity pass you up because you're scared to do it. I think that's the thing. I spent my first few years never saying no. And I've had so many people go, well, that's just not worth that money. It's not worth this. But the experiences you get sometimes make it worthwhile. I've done some freelance stuff where it's like, all right, the pay on this barely covers my parking. But you know what? It's an unbelievable experience that I'm getting to do it. And that's the stuff where you network and connect. You never know, you've got a job offer in front of you, and maybe it's not exactly what you want. My jump to a full-time position, it started because they needed somebody who knew website design, and I got that experience from a job I had before. And so as if my first directing role started because I knew website design. So you sit there and go, well, they brought me over to be director, but they also want me to do the website stuff. I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. I can do that. And I learned so much from that. And so you start to realize that, really evaluate things. It may not be exactly what you want, but you never know how it's going to bounce you elsewhere. Sometimes I've had so many friends that I graduated with and stuff that are like, hey, I went and I want to do production. All of a sudden now they're doing casting, and there's things they never ever thought of in school, and they love it. So you never know what job you're going to love. I never thought I was going to like managing. Just didn't think that was going to be the thing for me. And I took it because I'm like, you know what? I've had so many people tell me this is the role I need to dive into, and I did it, and I liked it. And so you never know where it's going to lead you. So don't watch saying no to things, because you never know where those opportunities can take you. And don't be scared to make the jump. You know what? It's not, you can jump somewhere and go, this is not the right market for me. This is not the right station for me. But I've gotten a ton of experience out of it. I learned a lot about myself and about them. And now I jump for the next thing. And don't let yourself get stagnant. That's probably the biggest thing. This industry and this market is changing, and technology changes so fast. Always make sure you're continuing to learn and stay on top of things. So